Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Magical Pats. I'm your host, Pat, and this is your other host.
Pat.
And we're here to talk about our philosophy on the Commander format and occasionally the state of Magic the Gathering as a whole. Before we begin, I just wanted to make sure that you listening at home know that this is not a family-friendly podcast, and while we certainly love listeners, we recommend turning to other Commander-focused podcasts if you're averted to the use of foul language. And with that disclaimer out the way, we can get started. How's it going, Pat? How has your week been?
Pretty good. I think I have an ear infection, but that's all right.
That's real fucking great to hear. If you at some point lose your gift of hearing during this podcast, I'll carry you across the auditory front lens.
Nothing you say is of any importance anyways.
This is true. There's one fucking fact on this podcast. It's anything I say. Just basically the ramblings of a inbred special boy living out his life in his late 30s, late 20s, early 30s right now. See, I don't even know what fucking age I am.
You fucked up last week.
I did fuck up last week. Bad. It's bad. You know, the funny part is that I didn't even notice it during the time and even through post-editing too. Like, that was...
Neither did I.
I don't know how I missed that shit. So, for listeners at home, last week I mentioned that Doran was, and I quote, straight Abzan, a blue, a black, and a green. I'm here to tell you that I told a lie. I fucking lied. That is not a blue and a black and a green. It is a white, a black, and a green.
There you go.
I've made great mistakes. If you at home, if it happened to cost you something big, hedging your bets that Abzan was a blue, a black, and a green, I'm sorry. You can send all of your hate mail, all of your directed fucking threats, and just pure unbridled rage to Pat and Pat.
Or just send hate mail anyways. Just do it.
Yeah, you know, just say hi. Just yeah. If you feel like saying hi and then directing your rage, Pat and Pat, mtg@gmail.com.
We enjoy this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I hope we do get at least one hate-filled email just so I'm going. I was tonight. Some social media site. I told everyone that Doran was in blue, black, and green, and then they started making suggestions, and I built my deck. I made a several $100 purchase on Card Kingdom, and now look, I'm under. I'm never coming back. Yeah. I want you to know this is an auditory wink of me going, just looking at that young boy who used their father or mother's credit card to make a triple-digit purchase on Card Kingdom. Because no, but that's okay. One day. The day we get 12-year-old Billy listening to our podcast, which they shouldn't because it's explicit, but should they happen to stumble upon it for a second and not realize that it's explicit because they're young and impressionable, I want them to know I apologize for putting you in the wrong direction in terms of colors that you may or may not have desired to use.
I'd be surprised if anyone stumbles upon this podcast.
Either way. I did it by accident. I had to look it up, but even then, even as I actively looked up our podcast on Spotify, it was by accident. It definitely wasn't. It wasn't on purpose. I just typed it in there.
We have a long fucking show ahead of us. We're fucking waffling about.
So today we're going to be talking about what got us started into Magic the Gathering, and then some of the changes that we've seen in the game over the years playing, which collectively is a pretty good amount of time between the both of us. I think I've been playing since 2005 up until now, obviously, with plenty of breaks in between. How long have you been collectively playing for now?
On and off since like 95.
Yeah, so you were there from the
little baby.
Yeah.
I was a little baby.
You were there when the card stock on Magic cards felt like actual casino cards.
Yeah, it felt real and it didn't curl and the cards stayed together and didn't fall apart. Yeah.
I'm trying. It's I know they used to print I think they were out of Belgium originally.
Yeah, I think
And
you're right.
that shit felt good. Even now when I go back and hold beta and unlimited cards, because finding alphas pretty hard
Impossible.
nowadays. Yeah, it's fucking hard. Maybe you'll find a land every now and again that slips through the cracks, but more often than not, every like high ticket chungus out there who knows the cost and the relative difficulty of finding those alpha cards tends to snatch them up. So yeah, that was, even holding them now, they feel great. They stay flat. They often end up being the nicest feeling stock I've felt thus far, but even now, as they try to improve that shit, I feel like they haven't quite nailed it yet. But whatever,
Yeah,
the cost of large.
do good enough, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, when your game, I think Magic is still currently the largest tabletop game in the world, to my recollection. I think it is the most widely played tabletop game in existence.
I think Pokemon beats it now
Is Pokemon,
as far as card game.
I thought it waxed. Again, we're using live stats right now. I'm definitely not talking out of my ass, as you can tell. Several hours of research involved. But I remember it being at that height, or at least that was the claim at some point, and I'm sure Pokemon beats it out.
It might still be. I don't know. I don't give a shit.
You'll know when we start talking about our standard Pokemon events we brought to the Junior League, because there was no Senior League, and our top level opponents were between the ages of 6 to 10. That's when we know we've gotten out of the fucking Commander game. But I'll let you start. Tell us a little bit about what got you into the game, what hooked you initially.
So, my brother's about 6 years older than me, and him and his friends, they played a card game. I was a little kid, and when the big kids do something, you want to do it too, because the big kids, they do cool shit. You want to be like them, and I would always watch them play. I had no idea how it worked. Hell, they probably didn't even either. But I really, really liked the art. Everything just looked horrible and awesome. Because when I was a little kid, I saw this movie called It, and the Thing, and those fucking had an impact on me. So I really liked cards like Living Wall and Nightmare and Scathed Zombies. I always thought that the art was really cool. So my brother finally taught me. One day, I think my mom made him teach me. One day he taught me. He was playing a mono black deck. I was playing a mono green deck. And I just sat there staring at these cards. I'm like, oh man, everything looks so crazy and weird. And I remember playing a War Mammoth. I believe it was War Mammoth. And my brother kept attacking me with these zombies, and I didn't want to block. I think he had some way to kill him. I don't remember how, but I really didn't want this War Mammoth to die, because I really liked the art. And then one turn he killed it with terror, and I fucking cried. I cried like a little fucking bitch.
It's because it was a bad.
I'm like, no. I was upset. I was torn. I couldn't fucking
I mean, rightfully so. You had your fucking man brought down in its prime.
I had this really cool elephant, and it just died. And I don't know, it was like the image of terror or something. It just fucking freaked me out.
Yeah.
And I just cried. I cried like a little baby. If
there's a moment to capture one's childhood, it's having your fucking mammoth struck down in its prime. It's fucking, which for those back home, I think mammoth was alpha originally, right?
Yeah, it was. I think it was a 3/3 or something.
It's a 3/3. Yeah, and it is. I'll refer to it in its original context. Summon mammoth.
Yeah,
and it's a 3 and a green. Look at that. What's funny is if you go back and look at the actual art for it too, everything looks real fucking good. It's very Bob Rossi.
Yeah, it looks great.
It looks great, but if you look at the ear on the mammoth, it looks like a fucking human ear. They fucking underbaked the ear on the mammoth. It looks it looks like a fucking nightmare, even in its pristine beauty.
As good as the art was back then, that there was a couple misses.
Oh yeah, that was the beautiful part about it, though. Is even with when I bought my Richard Kane Ferguson mat for the Dak and Blackblade art, I remember showing it off to one of my coworkers, and immediately she's like, "Why are there penises in the background?" And I was, if you look at the Dak and Blackblade art, he's a legend from Legends, and it just says he's two spires in the background, and sure enough, they just look like big, pulsing fucking dicks, just like erupting out of the background. And immediately, dude, she caught on almost immediately because they had to have been they're dicks. There's no runarounds. Like, they're veiny. Yeah. There's a head of that dick on each one too. It's not a surprise. Like, I think I enjoy Richard Kane Ferguson more because he fucking inserted just angry
giant Robin Cox.
Yeah, penile spires in the back of his fucking art. So, but yeah, sorry. Continue with the sad loss of your mammoth from your childhood.
So yeah, I lost my mammoth, and so I still wanted to play the game.
That sounds great. So I lost my mammoth.
But yeah, I still wanted to play. So one day, me and my brother, my mom took us to a flea market, and back then, you'd usually find like a seller or something selling magic cards there, some kind of deal, because fucking stores were like impossible to find. Like, I grew up in a really, really big city, and there's maybe 2 stores in the whole fucking city, and it was impossible to find anything. So I bought this pre-made, it was a black and red artifact ATOG deck, and the whole point, like, craft your artifacts, play your ATOG or your Colossus Sardia, and just beat face with it. So I bought that, and yeah, that was my first deck. I remember, like, I don't remember if it was probably shit, but I remember playing it. I, like, most of the time I would just spend the entire game just staring at, like, the Urza lands and, like, the Colossus Sardia. This is all, like, the really cool, like, old art. It was really
for the listeners back home, if you've never been at the mercy of an ATOG, or even I think there was a Gremlin that came out of Kaladesh too, that had roughly the same effect, where it's ATOG was originally printed, I think, back in Alpha as well, right?
Antiquity.
Oh, okay, that's right. It was Antiquities, and we got a reprint again in Mirrodin too, and it's just 1 in a red for an ATOG, which is a beautiful creature type even still to this day. And oh yeah, the art still across both is just, we talked about, like, the Thing, and we talked about, it and the fucking nightmare inducing images that can sometimes be on cards. Just look back at fucking ATOG. Look at the Antiquities art, because it's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
Yeah. And it's a uncommon that you sacrifice an artifact, and ATOG, it's +2/+2 until end of turn. So it's a solid sack outlet for your artifacts to run your shenanigans there, and it pumps itself up plenty of times, especially during even Mirrodin days where your lands were artifacts too.
Yeah,
which we'll talk about later at some point, I'm sure. Oh yeah, I can talk about mass exoduses from the game, but yeah. Running that and the Colossus together, I'm sure that was real fucking fire. I wish I could have been there to see that one.
It was great, but then that Colossus was impossible to cast. But either way, like, specifically the columns art for Urza's power plant and the sphere art for Urza's mine. Yes. Those were like the 2 that really stuck with me, because they just look so cool.
Yeah, the original art for Urza's tower is one of my favorite images in the game. It just looks so fucking pristine. There's that. Go ahead.
Oh, and back then decks were a lot different than what they were now. Like, back then, there was no real, like, competitive play. because game stores didn't exist, and there's no internet. You couldn't really talk about it. You couldn't really talk about the game, and finding players was fucking impossible. So it was the play group was just me, my brother, my friend, his two brothers, and two of my brother's friends. And decks were like 80 to 100 cards. Half of it lands. Another reason why I like Commander, because it really does like bring back the nostalgia glasses.
Yeah.
And yeah, the decks were shit. It was still a fun game.
That was kind of the point, though.
Yeah.
It's like the notion of competitive play during that time wasn't locked down the way that it is now. And just being able to, you were very much in that mode where you were a mage trying to cast big derp ass spells that just, when they hit down, they were either there to wreck face or do some real stupid jank effects. And that was the time. So I think that was, even to this day, I don't mind playing that way. It's preferred, but yeah, that was the way to play back in the day.
And you were lucky to have a playset of fucking anything, especially like a rare. You had to buy packs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think around Ice Age is when, even at like card stores, there wasn't really competitive play till I think around Ice Age, and then you just get wrecked by people playing Necropotents.
Yeah, which is always, everyone tells the classic story of Necropotents being like the underrated card that no one understood. And then
why would I take 1 life for a card? Why would you do that?
Yeah,
it sounds terrible. I like all my life.
And then as time went on and the fucking neurons started to fire, people figured it out at some point. But yeah, I don't recall too much competitive play before Ice Age, because that was when Necro just took over. So yeah, that lines up with my memories of the game for sure.
Like I'm sure there was, but I didn't see it. I'm almost positive there was, but I just had no concept of it. But yeah, then there was just, I mean, like casual decks were like the thing. Pre-Commander. Casual decks, they were all built the same, 80 to 100 cards, half of it lands, and the whole point of it was to like sit there with 3 other people or 4 or 5 other people and just dirtle around for 4 or 5 hours playing on your living room carpet. That was pretty much the game. And then in school, it was pretty much the social rejects and the weirdos. You stuck together and you played. Because, no one else is going to play with you.
What, you mean the popular kids weren't racing to fucking get to the lunch table and play shit with no sleeves?
I'm summoning elves and wizards and shit. No one's going to fucking do that.
I'll play my Llanowar elves.
Casting my spell. No one's going to fucking play that. So you had to put up with these fucking weirdos. I can use other words, but yeah, you had to put up with these people. It was fine. It wasn't too bad.
No.
Yeah, and then, Pokemon came out and Magic went in the fucking box.
I remember specifically like ogling my fucking Pokemon cards when I was a kid, because they were that was like the fucking MacGuffin of its day for me, because I got into Magic after Pokemon. And I just remember having like, what was the one that I thought was cool as fuck? I was super into dinosaurs, and there was a fossil Pokemon, Kabutops, and I remember someone trading me that, and I like instant like childhood erection. I was like, oh my god, dude, this Pokemon's like half fossil, half Pokemon.
I still have my pre-release Aerodactyl.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah. I still have it.
Oh god, I fucking love Aerodactyl so much. See, we're born in the same fucking cast, you and I. Look at that.
And I still have my Ancient Mew, the ones with like all the hieroglyphics on it. I still have that.
I was gonna say that's probably pricey.
The movie.
It might not be super expensive, but I'm sure it's got a price tag attached to it.
Yeah, probably. And I think the Mew promo too from the movie. But yeah, those are the only few Pokemon cards I still have left.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was my.
It was hard not to. It was hard not to put that away, put the Magic away for that. So I understand.
What is your story with Magic the Gathering?
Oh man, boy, do I got a story. I originally got into Magic during high school, and this was around Meriden. So originally, before I started playing Magic, I was real big. I didn't play many card games growing up. I remember growing up, and my first exposure to Magic was I went over one of my relatives' places, and there were nieces and nephews that are playing with alpha and beta cards. This was like 94, 95. So I saw that, and I wasn't taken back by it too much because I wasn't super into card games, but I remember them being super into it. Like they were sucked in, and there was no like breaking them away from that. And I didn't have that itch yet. So I kind of just looked at them like, wow, they're doing something over there, but
yeah, who cares?
Yeah, 5-year-old Chungus me doesn't understand what the fuck is going on. Like I'm just watching them like that seems exciting. I'm gonna go over here now. So I remember seeing Birds of Paradise on the table too, and I thought that's nice art. That's cool. And like I was excited to see some of that stuff, but it went away. And then at some point, I would say probably during middle school too, I would see people occasionally playing it out in the quad on campus, and they'd be like, again, same deal, playing with their cards. Everything was always unsleeved. Everything was just people playing casual,
rubbing against the asphalt and just ruining everything. Yeah, that's how we played.
Like shredding, like they
shuffling and just destroying.
Yeah, and this was kids. Like you talk about the destruction of cards with like riffle shuffles. These kids, like they were lucky if they understood how to riffle shuffle. It was just like throw your cards down the pile and kind of just scuttle them back together, and hopefully it was enough to randomize shit.
Pretty much.
But point being that for me at least, I've left and come back to Magic probably around 3 times from when I started playing in 2005. And during that time when I got into the game at a weird time because that was when there was that big old mass exodus from the game around Meriden block time. This was right after everyone had left the game due to all the Arcbound Ravager shenanigans. That was
Affinity was the boogeyman.
Yeah, Affinity fucked everything up. Everyone was just upset. Like Skull Clamp was the obvious error. I would see immediately when I started playing, I still would see what's the black artifact that gives creatures +1/+0 for each artifact on the field, and it can attach at instant speed.
Oh, cranial plating.
Yeah, I thought about it too when I said it out loud. Yeah, cranial plating was still hot fire. By that time, all the bans had been made, and so like a lot of the goodwill from the game was lost. We won't take all the time now to like discuss Affinity and discuss all of the cards that were involved in that process because there's 1,000 articles out there to look at that and no, those are popular cards. Maybe that'll come another day where we talk about the mechanic if it comes up. But
I'm sure when we run out of ideas after like episode 4 or 5,
you're giving us way too much fucking credit. I'm assuming we're running out of ideas after this fucking episode closes out.
Right now.
Yeah. So after that whole exodus had happened, I got into the game right at the tail end, about the middle section of Kamigawa, because I remember Saviors had come out, and I got into the game after I had a friend who, again, you want to talk about weirdos, there were the weirdos to get you into the game. They showed me Yu-Gi-Oh at the time, and the story is similar to a lot of others, I'm sure, where I'd gotten into Yu-Gi-Oh. I actually got pretty good at the game at some point. Like I had started to play competitive pretty well at the shop that I'd go to.
Trader.
Oh yeah, no, I hadn't touched Magic yet. So Yeah, this was before I had gotten into Magic, so I was fucking with Yu-Gi-Oh hard, and I remember I made a deck that revolved around sacrificing and pumps and yada yada yada. These weren't terms that I understood at the time, but like Galaxy Brain 2005 me thought this was the shit. And after I had finished with that, the kid that going back to the friend that had got me into Magic, I remember I sat down and I was trying to play a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And by that time he had tried to convert into Magic and was telling me just how fucking childish Yu-Gi-Oh! Seemed alongside Magic. And I was sitting there like, dude, what are you dumping on this for? Like, it's a good game. And he's like, well, this game is that much better. And so I looked at the Magic cards. I remember that was the first time I really ever observed one. And I would see like the power and toughness on the creatures.
Oh, it's so small.
Yeah, why the fuck are they single digits? It doesn't make sense. It's not even in the thousands. What the fuck is this? This is a game for like simpletons? And I remember, like, it was so sad. Like at the time there wasn't really like I don't remember Yu-Gi-Oh too much and having like the concept of a stack the way that I think it does now. But I'll stop talking about Yu-Gi-Oh. That was just the conversion over with everything was one where on its surface it looked like a very strange animal compared to that because the text was larger, the art was better, the card stock felt better.
Oh yeah.
As a whole, I was like, why the fuck did I had that moment where I was like, why the fuck did I even get into Yu-Gi-Oh in the first place? But it was a good foray, right? Like it got me into card games. And at that time too, I really started to look as I had time to look at the Kamigawa art. That's what really sucked me in. The same way that you kind of got sucked in by the art back in '95 when I would see the artwork on cards like Kokusho, the Evening Star was a big one where I looked at that. God, that's so fucking cool. There was that. Big ones from that time that I remember seeing Godo and thinking to myself, like, God damn it, dude. Like, there's no way that fucking brain in that skull can be that big, but look at that fucking, like...
huge fucking dude.
Yeah, look at that fucking, like, mongoloid atop that whatever the fuck he's riding. Like,
I think he's riding a boar or something.
Yeah. And that was great. Even seeing ninjutsu, like, I remember the first time I saw Ink Eyes, and I was like, that rat has some just big old tatties on her. I'm looking at her, I'm like, oh my God. Because they couldn't do, like, they could kind of do that in other games, but I was looking at her like, that is ridiculous. And that was,
that fucking promo art, they really show it off.
Oh, I know. They're like bulging out of there. Everything. It's like it's the card to make you think the wrong thing for like what's clearly like pseudo furry play.
Makes you stray away from God.
Yeah. I grew closer to the game as it strayed further and further from God. So yes. And I remember really loving that stuff. I'm like, this is so fucking ridiculous, but it was so detailed and I couldn't stay away. I loved ninjutsu as a mechanic too. I really, really remember loving it at the time. It was not very competitive in the way that.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a great idea. That's one of those ones that I understand why Morrow returned back to it later, because it really is like flavorful, fun. It's a good gotcha moment with stuff, and it was so great. But again, it wasn't really useful at the time. It was cool. I just love the flavor of the block as a whole, and I remember people not being super into it because there were a lot of names that people didn't really necessarily know how to pronounce. It was a combination of, if you didn't align yourself with Japanese culture, probably not as much in the way that people do now that like weeb life really set in at some point. It didn't speak to you, but luckily that was when I really started to get into like anime as a kid, and I thought that I'm like, oh, this is WEEB written all the fuck over it. So I remember
I'll say one thing about Kamigawa is that Saviors, the first set, Champions and Betrayers are great. Saviors is a fucking shit show, and it was the worst fucking pre-release event I've ever played.
I tried to
Saviors
draft
deserves
it
all
one
the fucking hate it
time.
gets.
Oh my god, dude. I just remember there was a series of uncommons, the Ghostlit series where you had like Ghostlit Raider. I know there are a full 5-color cycle of them. I don't have them up right now because obviously I wasn't initially going to talk about them, but it was immediately telling that the best card in that entire set, or the best cards you could find, were those uncommons and Pithing Needle.
Yeah.
Like, all the rest of it was ass. Even now, you can get boxes of Saviors for like roughly a little over $100 because that set was trash. It was so fucking bad. I don't think I cracked a single pack of Saviors. I remember the only reason you opened the Saviors was to get a Pithing Needle.
Or Twin Cast.
Yeah, Twin Cast was hot fire because that was
I remember opening up my fucking tournament packs. I'm like, wow, this is just one big pile of shit.
Yeah. I remember watching people crack it, and even then I felt bad. I was like, I don't understand the game super well, but I know enough to know that this is ass. And it was so bad because Champions and Betrayers were so good. Like they were so
great. Yeah.
I feel like the only reason Kamigawa gets the rap that it does is because Saviors was so fucking bad.
Yeah.
And I understand there's a lot of blocks that have that. I mean, you want to talk about sets that have the third block problem, like RTR was one of them in spades too, because like, what was it, Dragon's Maze? I came back to the game. There's some shining cards in there for sure. Like Voice of Resurgence is a big one. But there's cards like that. Like I don't even want to get into that fucking territory. But point is, I came back to the game, and for as much as people want to, piss and moan that like that block is garbage, or the other way around, people are like, oh, it's the greatest block. No, I mean it's very good. There's a lot of fun things to do with it. There's a lot of mechanics in there that are cool. It toyed around with the legend rule in a way that other sets hadn't, and that was a lot of fun. And that preludes into probably one of the biggest combos I saw at the time. This was the friend that I was playing with had a Tron deck that used all of the Urza's lands, and the main portion of that deck revolved around Kokosho dying to itself to the legendary rule and Death Cloud.
Yeah.
And that was just, I watched that and was hard as a fucking rock. Like, oh my God, dude. I remember, how old was I at the time? I remember like 15 or 16-year-old me. No, I was 15, being real fucking into it. For the listeners at home, Death Cloud, for the listener at home, we'll go with that. Death Cloud is a black sorcery that's black, and X. And depending on how much you put in X, each player will lose X life, discard X cards, sacrifice X creatures, then sacrifice X lands. It was pain.
It's fucking backbreaking.
God, just watching in motion was so fucking good. Like, no one could recover. By that time, you've obviously, hopefully, drained the opponent enough out with Kokosho. So Kokosho was 4 and 2 black. It's Kokosho the Evening Star. It was a legendary creature that was a dragon spirit. It had flying, and then when it was put into a graveyard from play, so when it died, each opponent would lose 5 life. You would gain life equal to the life lost this way. What that meant is that regardless of whether you had one Kokosho out or whether or not you had 2 Kokoshos out and one would die, at the time they would see each other and die to the legendary rule, which even then too, if your opponent had a legendary out and you played yours, it would kill theirs off too, which you didn't want to do. This is one of the cards that would rely on the legendary rule so heavy that it was one of the funnest things to play with. Like it wasn't like the legendary rule that would get exploited at that time where you would play your creature to purposely kill the opponents because they couldn't exist at the time. It was, oh, fuck, they got their Kokosho down first. And even if I kill it, it's diminishing returns for me because I'm still getting drained worth 5. So it was like a race to the bottom. So then Kokosho, if you sacrifice it to Death Cloud, would die first, get the triggers off, and you would just put your opponent in the dirt. Like it was so good to watch. And with the Urza lands out, or once all 3 lands are out, tower, power plant, and mine, they collectively can tap for 7 mana in total across all of them. And that would it would fuel the fire so hard. Like that was what got me into Magic when I saw that getting played, and I was just, oh my God. So I saw that go down. I fell in love with the game. And then I remember going to an F&M because the cards were still relatively expensive at the time. And by expensive, I mean like top end usually went from somewhere between $10 and $20 per like your most expensive cards.
Were cheap, even in like heavy competitive play. They were like an expensive card was $10. A really expensive card was maybe $20.
Yeah, that was pushing it. That was like it was a feel bad, but nowadays, obviously, compared to what it looks like now, it was expensive in its time for kids, especially around my age. But nowadays, fuck, if the top end card costed $20, I would be real happy with my financial decisions regarding this game. So I tried to play at an F&M using a friend's mono black Rats deck at the time. And Rats was a big archetype that showed up out of Betrayers. And it was helmed with Ukora the Prisoner. That was the big beater in the deck. And Ukora the Prisoner is it's 2 and 2 black, and it's a legendary creature that's a demon spirit. And when Ukora the Prisoner leaves play, you sacrifice all non-ogre creatures you control. Sounds like shit. But at the time, the thing to note on it was that it had power and toughness of 5/5. Of a power of 5 and a toughness of 5. Which for 4 mana was a fucking deal.
Back then, yeah.
Yeah. There were a few creatures that had a good rate on them. Like, obviously, if you compare this up against something like Questing Beast now, this looks like ass. Like, it does none of the things that a lot of other cards are comparatively doing much better than it nowadays. But at the time, having 5 power and 5 toughness for 4 mana, that at worst it would roughly wrath your board of all non-ogre creatures, was fine. I'll pay the price. That was kind of the price you used to pay for the power in black. Is you got what you needed, but
high risk, high reward.
Exactly. And I remember I faced off against that Death Cloud deck, and I think he thought that I was going to get rolled because we were the first people to face each other in the standard tournament we were playing, or Type 2 at the time. And I rolled him so hard. And I just remember him having that look on his face of just like, I had made a mistake in life. And I love that fucking look. I'm sorry. Like, I know I sound like such an asshole for saying that, but no, I legitimately was like, yes. Like, feel the fucking pain.
Getting fucking bodied.
Yeah. I got my taste right then. And later on, I would go to build. So that same time, I also played. I beat him and then went on to play. It was a 5-color deck that revolved around Life from the Loam, and I just got fucking smoked. Like, I got outbrained so hard, and I was just like, "Oh, this is what it's like to get got." And I still loved it. I remember because that set the cadence for me at the time, where I was like, "Yeah, I can't do anything about this, but this looks fucking great." And
you can just fucking kill me. I don't care.
Yeah, just fucking do it. So after that whole F&M, I remember that was the time when I really started to want to get into the game. And so at that time too, that's when Ravnica came out. That was a big game changer. We could talk about all that another day too. Some of the sets that sit with us heavier than others, but that was the first time where people came back to the game in like droves. Ravnica
It was a flood.
reinvigorated the game. Again, a story that's been told 1,000 times, but being there for it was nice. It was like, yeah, okay, there's more people showing up to FNMs. There's more people wanting to build. I remember there was one night too where I was watching, I think I was just watching Dragon Ball on Adult Swim, and that was when I saw Ravnica get televised for the first time.
Those ads.
Yeah,
it was like some kid on a subway, and like fucking an angel would show up or some shit like that.
Yeah, and it was fucking cool. I was like, oh wow, dude, it's actually the thing I'm playing is on TV right now. So I built a constructed deck that revolved around Moloku the Clouded Mirror, which, if you're not familiar, at the time was a big control finisher. It was 4 and a blue this was out of Champions. I forgot to say earlier, Kokusho and Bukora also out of Champions too, big cards. It was a legendary creature that was a Moonfolk wizard that had flying. And the cool part was you could pay 1 generic mana and just return a land you control to its owner's hand and put a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with flying into play. So it'd make 1/1 flyers at instant speed on your opponent's turn to just get in and chip damage and wreck face. And that was super cool, man. That was
he was really hard to deal with.
Yeah, it was. And I thought I was super Galaxy Brain. I got smoked again. And I remember putting a lot of money into that deck because I ended up facing against it was another 5-color loam deck at the time. And I remember that was when I felt real bad about my fucking play because I actually had a sideboard that had Dimir Doppelganger in it. It was 1 a blue and a black for a shapeshifter that you could pay a one a blue and a black and then remove target creature card in a graveyard from the game. And then it would just become the copy of that card and then have the ability. So at the time, that was originally like the Scavenging Ooze of its day. And that deck, the 5-color loam deck, at least the variation I played had Golgari Grave Troll in it.
Ooh.
And I left that game feeling like, what the fuck? Why did I not put that in? And that was hard to stomach. I was like, I paid money to just get fucking wrecked. But it was still fun. Around that time too, that's probably when I really started cracking packs. That was when the big chase rare at the time was Graveshell Scarab, which I believe was a 1 a black and 2 green. And it was a 5/5 that's here without me butchering it.
I think it was a 4/4.
Was he a 4/4? Let me see real quick before I
dredge 1, sack him, draw a card.
Yeah, that was the deal with him. Let me see.
How did I remember that after all this fucking time?
I surprise myself sometimes too. Trust me. So it was 2 generic, a black and 2 green. And it was you pay 1, sacrifice it to draw a card, and then you could just dredge 1, where you would just put the top card of your library into the grave and bring it back to your hand instead of drawing that card. And that thing at the time looked like the fucking monster. Like that was so in a singular pack, I got a watery grave and a foil Graveshell Scarab, and I was real fucking high in life at that moment. That felt real good. That was funny too, because even at the time then, cards like Doubling Season, I remember explicitly being like less than bulk.
Like I remember selling stacks, because I used to draft every week, stacks of them. I must have sold 100 of them for fucking 10 cents a piece.
Yeah,
fucking bulk price.
Oh my god, dude. They were ass. And I remember I got a box at one point too, and I opened up like 2 of them. I felt so fucking cheated. It's like, this is awful. Now, obviously, like that was the Chase Mythic and fucking in Battle Bond. Yeah, Jesus. Yeah. The places we've gone. And then I remember that Shocklands at the time were a big game changer, obviously, because it was a dual land that the worst upside sorry, the worst downside to it was that you lost 2 life when it came into play, but it had fucking land types on it too.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Shocklands were great. It never felt bad. That was the first time where I felt like opening rare lands was just, that was,
yeah.
that
Before
was
that,
the
rare land shit.
walk a golden ticket of its time. And yeah, that was the majority of what I remember for playing back in about 2005 to 2007. I remember too, so I don't think I ever told you guys the story, and I left this in here without telling you just to see what you'd say. So I used to be a little fucking stinker, and I would sneak out to play sometimes too. And I remember I did that one too many fucking times. And at one point I did it one afternoon where my parents got upset enough to where my dad was like, give me those cards. And he took the fucking like pile I had and the binder and just threw it in the fire. I was like, oh yeah, dude. He was like, it's fucking it. So I got fucked out of the game. It was so sad. I just remember sitting there watching it, and I was like, "Oh man,
what was in there?"
That was like the scared straight moment I had, and there was a lot. I don't want to talk about how much money I fucking lost in that, but whatever. Part of me is like, you deserve it, you fucking little weasel, because I used to be such a little shitburger like that, and I remember they just tossed him into the fucking crucible. So I didn't play Magic for a very long time, and then the last part of my story is that I came back into Magic at around Lorwyn and Time Spiral, and this was back in college. This was my undergrad, and that was when I think we were just collectively on my floor. We all kind of realized we had played Magic at some point in my life, the floor of my dorm, and we decided to buy back in just to play with each other. And I ended up getting a mono black goblins deck that was so much fun to play. Like, I hadn't discovered Tribal when I first started the game. And then when I discovered Tribal around then, I mean, Magic was on the cheap at that time too. So I built that mono black goblins deck for probably like 30 or 40 bucks.
Wow.
And it was, I mean, oh my God, dude. I remember having great moments with it. Like getting to cast, it was Mad Auntie and Tarfire and was it Stench Skipper is the one that would change.
I didn't play during Lorwyn.
Oh my God. That was
out of my shit wheelhouse.
It was so good. It was so good. I won't list all those cards right now because just for the sake of time, but it was a lot of fun. And we would play with each other every day on that floor. And it was just nice. It was a nice getaway from just grinding out classes and shit. I remember too, because that was the time I saw Tarmogoyf spike like almost in real time. That was funny as fuck because it had picked up steam, and I remember watching it go up, and then each day I'd check back. That was the first time I realized finance was such a big portion of the game too, and just seeing Tarmogoyf go from like, you know, in the tens to multiple tens to like it.
When people realize how broken that fucking card is.
Oh yeah, they didn't think about that shit at all. Like, and then the end of my story was pretty much that I at that time Lorwyn had dropped, and it was already there, but I saw walkers really started to get incorporated into constructed play because people saw how good Garruk Wildspeaker was, which was the OG Garruk.
That the untapped forest guy or untapped lands guy.
Yeah, he would +1 to untapped lands, and it was at the time walkers were just rare cards too. They weren't mythics. That didn't come into play until Shards of Alara as a block. And that shit was just, I did not like walkers at the time. And even now I don't love them, but I remember looking at them and just thinking they were so fucking wonky.
Hey, we have something in common.
Yeah. Now they're fucking uncommon mythics almost at times. They're fucked up, and I don't love them because they slow the game down, but I shouldn't say forced. I've learned to let them grow on me in ways, but at the time I didn't like where the game was headed, because I like to put creatures sideways and fucking go to the face, and that was where that left me. So I think we got into a good segment there, mess of me talking about my whole Magic story. I think you got some more to shed some light on the fun days of our Magic past.
Yeah, it was a sort of a parallel story, I guess, because I got back into Magic around high school, and I was probably, I was 15, 14, 15,
Mm-hmm.
and went to a new school and found the weirdos right away. Like I give up some kind of scent, and found out they play Magic. Like, ooh, I have a bunch of those old cards. I'll bring them with. And like the fucking idiots we were, we played during the lunch in front of everybody. In the fucking lunch table, with people walking by and fucking laughing at us.
But it's okay. I've got my card game to fall back on.
Fucking screaming and fucking screeching at each other and fucking yelling.
Man.
I remember some days like fucking like there'd be vacant seats around us because no one wanted to sit around us. It was great. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was the start of like a fucking whole life experience.
Little did we know.
Yeah, I remember like watching them playing. Like, what the fuck are these? Like, oh, it's an artifact. Like, why are artifacts silvery white? And what is equipment? And this was around Mirrodin. I think it might have been like Darksteel or something. But yeah, like, this fucking the new frames and just I was like, it looked like a different game. It looked completely alien to me.
Yeah.
And but I stuck with it. I'm like, sure, I'll bring my cards in. We started playing, and I went to the game store that I used to go to as a kid, and it was full of people who actually played Magic. I'm like, holy shit. So I would go there just about every fucking day. And we'd play, and we would get to know each other, and I met up with a couple of my brother's old friends, and we became friends, and the community was a lot more cohesive back then because it was still small. It was still small, and Magic players were still looked at as people you didn't want to talk about, people you didn't want to talk to, and like, I mean, I can't really blame them because the fucking card shop I went to was like a fucking like David Lynch directed it. It was just full of like
too many fucking characters.
It's like fucking Eraserhead. It was nuts.
Yeah. Or people like have those dramatic pauses and what they're saying for no fucking dramatic pause at all. They just don't know how to fucking interact.
And it was always funny watching like a normal person come in to like try to buy comics or something, take one step, look around, then immediately leave.
Yeah.
And just say a word. But yeah.
They're like, yeah, that seems normal for them.
Yeah. But like another thing that really shook me was like the art. The art had changed. Like there was still good stuff. There's still good art. Like I had to catch up between like I think I quit maybe around Saga maybe when I was a kid, but or Tempest. But yeah, like I caught up like Invasion. Like Invasion was cool. I remember that. Like I still played sporadically, but Mirrodin was when I really got back. But yeah, like everything changed in 8th edition. I still don't like the new frames. I like the old frames, like because they had like a textured feel to it. It looked like they were more flavorful. Like the swamp had like bubbling muck on it, and
I understood why they make the changes to the card frames they do now out of just pure uniformity, but they lose a lot of that like.
Because the red ones looked like they were granite. It looked really, and there's cracks in it, and it looked really cool.
Yeah.
And so that was it was, and they started doing CGI, but anyways, that's enough of the art shit. But yeah, so
I have my feelings on the CGI shit too, for what it's worth. So I feel your pain.
So I started playing again, and Ravnica came out, and then that's when I started really getting into the game. That's when I started drafting and started building standard decks.
This is RTR, correct? Not OG Ravnica.
No, this is OG Ravnica.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so this is the original Ravnica because this. I remember I was still doing casual play during Champions. Like it was just our casual decks, and like casual decks had gotten better. They were no longer 100 cards and 90 lands. They had gotten better. They were more I guess I don't know. I don't know why they got better, but they did. They're back down to a manageable size of usually 60 or 70 cards. Yeah, I mainly played casually until Ravnica. Then I started drafting. I started with homebrew standard decks. Then I think that was still homebrew standard decks because I didn't have the internet. And I did fairly well. And then I started playing extended and vintage, like actual vintage. And I was in fucking high school. And like this was before card prices had gotten stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I was buying Underground Seas for about 20 or 30. More than that was too expensive. And I
Those
remember picking up
were they revised or were they unlimited?
Revive.
Okay.
And I remember like trading in a bunch of bulk cards for a fucking time twister. Like a stack of
God,
200 like bulk cards, like City of Brass and other things that weren't maybe $1 each, to card shop and getting a fucking time twister and a time walk. And so I had I had fucking 2 vintage decks. I didn't have all the power. I didn't have Black Lotus or Mox Sapphire or Mox Jet, but I had the cheap Moxes. I had the cheap pieces of power. But yeah, like back then you could have. I was still a high school student and I could afford fucking power. Like, and that was a lot of fun playing vintages. But then Time Sprawl came out. Time Sprawl, greatest block in the world.
Yeah.
Time Sprawl is the greatest block. Ice Age is the greatest set. But
yes, I'll agree with that. Okay, maybe not. I don't necessarily share the sentiment of Ice Age because I know that was there. My favorite set I think is still. I love Shards of Alara. It was a block. I didn't always get to play in all of it, but I can see
why Shards is cool.
Yeah, just like getting entrenched in like the setting and the mechanics. Yeah, that's my set. But I think the best set is still the best block is Time Spiral block, hands down.
Oh yeah. And and Time Spiral was a fucking home run because all the art it was a nostalgia set. And the art was great. It was all weird art, and then then Planar Chaos came out, and all the color shifted cards. And Time Spiral came. I mean, then Future Sight came out, and all the crazy frames and the full art fucking vanilla creatures. Yeah, it was great. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think that was probably the first time that like full art altered border cards started getting snuck into sets like that. At least in my knowledge with it. I mean, that whole set felt like a love letter within like a love letter.
Yeah, because like back then, like WotC actually cared about the players, like just for going to like tournaments and shit. They would send you fucking full art foil cards. Like I understand why they can't do that nowadays. The player base is way too big, but they could probably still do it.
They had issues. They just need to do it with simpler cards. I know that they ran into issues with it because they would do full art foils for cards like fucking Cryptic Command.
Yeah.
And then take it to tournaments and like it was just judge calls on judge calls for those full art foils, and it was just like they got fucking tired of it because I understand why they got tired of it, but it's also like they should just be putting a fucking disclaimer down that like if you forget the modes on your card, we will not fucking remind you.
And it was great. I remember seeing Tarmogoyf for the first time and like why the fuck does it say Planeswalker? Is Planeswalker a new permanent type? I remember getting hyped about that. Not realizing the truth, but that
was fucking perfect. And not realizing the truth.
Yeah, and this was when Future Sight came out. I was still playing, but I'd stopped playing Vintage. I'd stopped playing Extended. I'd stopped playing Standard. I just started just casual because that was just the most fun. That's what everyone at the shop played. But I started leaving the game. I was probably 17 or 18 at the time, and I remember at my friend's house with another friend, and Liliana got spoiled. And I remember looking at it.
I like that Lily though.
it's a good Lily, but like I was already leaving the game. Like, I'm not fucking dealing with Planeswalkers. What is this? Because they didn't explain what it did. I'm like, and then Planeswalkers came in. People started playing them. I'm like, wow, this is just, I fucking hate these goddamn things.
It's a fucking time vampire is what it is. Like, it's too much like taking up and doing things like you're not actively towards. It's like the card form of like fucking Shahrazad, where like the physical embodiment, where you're not working towards killing the player, you're working towards killing the like miniature player.
Yeah, and it turns into a mini game, and I was just like, I played a bunch of games with them. I refuse to play with them in my standard deck. I'm like, yeah, and everyone started playing Planeswalkers because they're fucking great. So I'm like, I'm just not doing this anymore. So I dumped the whole game, and I didn't come back till like RTR and Theros. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, I think we've collectively decided that we'll do a part 2 for all that, because there's definitely more towards one. There's plenty of story on your side from when you got into RTR and Theros, and I actually got back into Magic after that, and we've got plenty of good stories to follow from when we both kind of returned after both of those respective times. So
a lot of things happened during Theros to now.
Yeah, a lot. You were there for more of it than I was, but I can definitely tell you the state of the game is definitely far different, even from that point up until now. So, well, good deal. That was a good part 1 of our recollection of all the shenanigans that we engaged in, when we started Magic up until some of the bigger points where we kind of left the game. And I think that's a pretty good end point in terms of us both leaving the game when Planeswalkers started to really pick up steam. Fucking God. I don't mind them. I play with them actively now in EDH, and I didn't for a long time. It took me a long time to warm up to them again, but we have more to go off of that. But that's, at least we both kind of know we're on the same page in terms of our play style and what we like. And that Planeswalkers generally aren't the first thing we're always running towards. But that was good. That was a good recap on everything. So off of I should say, before we move on, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we talk about the cards we wanted to mention?
No, I think that's about it. Anything else that I wanted to add would go on and make this episode even longer.
Yeah, I know. Already at an hour, baby. All right. Well, we'll go briefly into the cards that we want to mention with everything. So I'll let you take the first one like last time. Go ahead.
The card I like is Soldevi Adonate. It is a black creature, a cleric. It costs 1 generic and a black. It's 1/2. It has an ability: tap it, sacrifice a black or artifact creature, add an amount of black mana equal to that creature's casting cost. And this isn't, it's not like a super powerful card, but I just really like it, and I've never seen anyone besides me play it. So I think more people should play it.
When I've watched you play it, it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Like, watching it in motion I didn't know that it was a card until I watched you played Soldevi Adonate before, which I should mention, this is just a fucking common from Alliances.
Yeah, common from Alliances.
Jesus God. I also put the flavor text on mention for us to know. I'll let you read that because it's fucking great.
An idiot cannot hear sense, even when 1,000 people speak it.
It's so good. I feel like that lines up with the whole reason that we do the 2 cards we want to mention, to just let people know about underrated or under talked about cards. Like, that flavor text lines up perfectly with the purpose of this segment.
They're powerful. They just have to be cards that we like, or something that more people should play. And Soldevi Adonate is definitely one of them, because it's usually the more mana you spend on a creature, like, the more you get out of it, because you're essentially double casting creatures. For like, when you have 2 5-drops in your hand, you get to play them both and get their ETBs or their death triggers, because you're playing black, so you're gonna want that.
Yeah, There's senses where I can't recall all the things he sacrificed, but even just looking at it for face value, like if I sacrifice my Spine of Ishsaw for 7 black mana to return it back to my hand to cast it again,
Yeah.
like, god damn, dude, that card is extremely powerful. And it doesn't just die to like pingers either. Like, it's got a little butt on it.
Yeah, it's got a little butt. It can attack if it needs to.
Yeah. And it's a body with a sacrifice on the tail end if it needs to be. And you don't get a lot of artifact sacrifice triggers in black too, which I think is super unique about it. So it's just, yeah, that card's a very full package, and just being able to juice your mana with a sacrifice outlet that puts that much mana into your pool is nuts. Like that card is the real deal.
So what is your super secret tech card?
Oh, my super secret tech card is it's a recent one. And I like doing this with new sets because EDH usually affords a chance for experimentation, cards to shine that initially wouldn't get the chance. And it's not one that hasn't been talked about either in standard. So it's Lockmere Serpent from Throne of Eldraine. It's just a rare, not a mythic, which when I play with that card, damn near feels like one.
It's got enough shit on it.
Yeah, it does. So it's a blue-black creature that's a serpent. It's 4 a blue and a black specifically. It has a power and toughness of 7/7 for 6 total CMC in Dimir, which is blue and black.
You're already under turf for that.
Yeah. We talked about Yukora the Prisoner earlier. This is effectively the same thing, where you're paying less mana for more power and toughness. But this thing has flash, which means you can just play it at any time you choose.
Sneak it out.
Just sneak it out. Just end of turn. Black. Just like, that's great turn right there. Black. And just fucking put them right there. Everyone to see. We affectionately call this one Nessie. So... yeah. 3 abilities past the flash. You can pay a blue, sacrifice an island, and it can't be blocked this turn, which is extremely relevant when I play this in my Yuriko deck, my Yuriko the Tiger Shadow deck, off of talking so much hype about ninjas earlier. This in Yuriko is disgusting because I run plenty of extra turn spells in that deck as it is, so I can flash this in, get my attacks, get my Yuriko triggers, chunk in for 7 damage, and whatever Yuriko or my other ninjas flash off the top, take an extra turn, rinse, repeat. It's fucked up. So that's not even the end of it. I can pay a black and sacrifice a swamp to gain 1 life and draw a card, which it'll just grant me card advantage if I'm flooded out.
Yeah.
And then I can play, again, not done, a blue and a black. I can exile 5 target cards from an opponent's graveyard. In doing so, I can return it back from my graveyard to my hand. I can only do this at sorcery speed, though. Specifically, when I'm playing Yuriko, I end up with a shitload of cards in hand because of the way that card operates. When I have extra, I end up just pitching Lockmere Serpent. Sometimes I forget how impactful it is to just even do exile 5 cards from someone's graveyard.
You can just fuck up a graveyard deck real hard.
Yeah. I mean, this card is, if you're not playing with it now, just get a game in with it. It will not be a showstopper, I promise. It's disgusting. And being able to protect itself with the ability to have flash, and that it's not susceptible to board wipes right away, being able to chunk in for 7 and block damage, being able to give you card advantage and life, and just being able to exile 5 cards from a graveyard. It's the full package on 6 mana. I love this card.
It's what, 50 cents or $1?
It's no, sir. You are going extravagant. Fucking quarter. Like, you can even get the extended art version right now for like roughly, I think it's $1 or $2, something in that range. I'm curious now. I think that's what I originally purchased it for initially, but let me see. I'm gonna look it up right now. Come on, baby.
I think so. Debbie had me, it's like 10 cents or something too.
The extended art is $2. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, if you're, I might actually just buy a playset of this today just to have it on hand because I love this card so fucking much. It's fantastic. So that's my pick for an additional card I wanted to mention there. Something to add to your repertoire if you haven't, just to spice it up. I actually liked your pick a lot too. This set of picks was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I've yet to play with Lockmere Serpent, but I'll eventually make a deck that can use it. It looks like fun. It's a giant serpent with a bunch of abilities. How can you go wrong?
Just flop your fucking serpent out on the table when people aren't expecting it.
Fucking big dick energy.
Just BDE on cardboard, baby. Feels real good. All right. We won't go too much longer than this. I can't believe we exceeded the mark from last time.
I can.
That's yeah, I know. That's did you have anything to add before we finished?
No, I think that's about it.
Good deal. All right. Well, that's our show for this week. We really want to thank all of our new listeners out there. If you happen to find us, if you liked what we talked about here, yeah. If you liked what we talked about here and you want more, again, we're trying to record here on about a bi-weekly schedule. I know we're a little bit late this week, just been around the holidays, so it was a little busier, but expect an episode around every 2 weeks. That's the general cadence. Again, from last time, we still only have our email established for the podcast, but we're interested in adding additional features, specifically some more interactable features going forward. What is it?
YouTube is coming. We will be coming to YouTube.
Yes. That was a big when you talked about doing that, I actually got me really excited just to have cards at the ready to show.
Yeah. The channel spread easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Additional ways for people to find us, interact with us. Again, if you have any questions for the podcast, we'd love to do listener question segments as well. Potential Discord chats in the future. That obviously takes some growth in the mix, but if you happen to find us and want to throw a question on there, we'd love to answer or talk about it. You can also look forward to hearing some guest features in the future too for any potential guests we have. Friends of ours, hopefully maybe a pro player or someone who's involved in design in the future or something along those lines. If you want to send us any feedback or any questions, again, our email is patandpatntg@gmail.com. And that's it for this episode. We just want to thank everyone again. We look forward to talking to you all again soon. Thank you so much for the podcast again, Pat. We will continue this all again in part 2.
Yep. Goodbye.
All right. Take it easy, guys.